The massive space station called Nexus Prime floated in the darkness between stars. It was the size of a small moon, built from crystal and metal that sparkled like diamonds. Inside its great chamber, representatives from 847 different alien species gathered for their quarterly meeting. The chamber was a perfect sphere, so large that clouds formed near its ceiling. Gravity fields let each species stand on their own section of the curved walls. The bird-like aviaris perched on crystal branches. The water-breathing aquans floated in transparent tubes filled with their home ocean. The rock-eating lithoids sat on platforms of heated stone. Despite their differences, they all shared one thing. They were herbivores or scavengers, peaceful species that had learned to survive by avoiding conflict. Ambassador Zephyr 9 of the Crystalline Collective called the meeting to order. Her body was made of living crystal that rang like bells when she moved. The sound echoed through the chamber as delegates settled into their places. "Today we discuss the usual matters," Zephyr 9 announced. "Trade routes through the Spiral Arm, mining rights in the Outer Rim, and territorial disputes in Sector 7. The first few hours passed like every other council meeting for the past 1,000 years. The Merchants Guild complained about pirate attacks. The Agricultural Union requested more transport ships. The Vorthak Empire, the only military power in the council, promised to increase patrols along dangerous routes. Then something changed. Alarms started ringing throughout the station. The Vorthak security chief, a 7-foot-tall reptilian creature, with 4 arms, suddenly stood up. His scales had turned from green to bright red, a sign of extreme alarm among his people. "Unknown vessel approaching," he hissed through his translator. "It appeared on our sensors without warning. Our detection grid shows nothing, but the ship is clearly there." Zephyr 9's crystal body flickered with confusion. "How is this possible? Our sensor network can detect a grain of sand from a light year away." "The vessel is requesting permission to dock," the security chief continued. "It speaks perfect galactic standard, but there is no record of this species in our databases." Murmurs spread through the chamber. First contact with a new species was rare. Most civilizations were discovered long before they developed space travel. The idea that a species could reach the galactic community without being noticed was disturbing. "Show us the vessel," Zephyr 9 commanded. A holographic display appeared in the center of the chamber. The ship was small, maybe 300 feet long. It looked primitive compared to the sleek vessels of the Galactic Council. The hull was made of simple metal alloy with chemical rocket engines and basic fusion reactors. It looked like something from the early space age of most civilizations. But somehow this primitive ship had traveled faster than light. Somehow it had found Nexus Prime, hidden in empty space. Somehow it had bypassed every sensor and defense system. The Vorthak security chief was clearly agitated. "Recommend immediate quarantine protocols. Unknown species could carry diseases or hostile intentions." "The ship is waiting patiently," added the communications officer. "They have not moved since requesting docking permission. They seem to be following proper diplomatic procedures." Zephyr 9 considered the options. The safe choice was to turn the ship away. But the Galactic Council had been formed to welcome new species into their peaceful community. After several minutes of debate, she made her decision. Grant docking permission, but maintain full security protocols. The chamber fell silent as everyone watched the primitive ship slowly dock with the station. The airlock cycled, and 3 figures stepped through. They were bipedal, about 6 feet tall, with pale skin and forward-facing eyes. The predator eye configuration sent ripples of unease through the herbivorous majority. But these creatures moved calmly, without the aggressive postures most predators displayed. They wore simple environmental suits and carried no visible weapons. The lead figure removed her helmet, revealing a face with kind eyes and graying hair. She looked around the chamber with obvious wonder and curiosity, not fear or aggression. "Greetings," she said in perfect galactic standard. I am Dr. Sarah Chen, representing the planet Earth and the human species. We come in peace, seeking friendship and trade with the galactic community. The translator systems worked perfectly, but something about her voice was different. Most species spoke with careful formality when meeting the council. This human sounded relaxed, almost casual, as if she was meeting old friends rather than first contact with an alien civilization. "How did you find us?" Zephyr 9 asked. Dr. Chen smiled. "We detected your quantum communication network about 50 years ago. It took us a while to figure out the language and locate this station. We've been watching your public broadcasts and learning about your cultures. Fascinating stuff." The casual mention of detecting quantum communications caused another stir. Quantum transmission technology was considered advanced even by council standards. Most species took centuries to develop it after achieving space travel. "What is your technological level?" asked Professor Keth Prime of the Memory Keepers, an ancient species that looked like walking trees. "We're pretty new to all this," Dr. Chen replied. "We split the atom about 100 years ago, reached our moon 50 years later, and figured out faster than light travel just 20 years ago. We've been exploring our local star group ever since." The chamber erupted in whispers. The timeline was impossible. Most species took thousands of years to progress from nuclear energy to FTL travel. The fastest known development had taken 500 years, and that species was considered remarkably advanced. Dr. Chen seemed unaware of the commotion she had caused. She looked around the chamber with genuine enthusiasm. "This place is amazing. How do you manage the gravity fields for so many different species? And that architecture, is that living crystal? We have so much to learn from you." The Aquan representative, floating in his water tube, spoke up. "You developed FTL travel in 100 years? This seems highly improbable." "Well, we had some advantages," Dr. Chen said. "Our planet went through some rough times that taught us to work together quickly. 2 world wars, a Cold War, climate change, a few pandemics. Nothing like what you see in the history books, but enough to motivate rapid technological development." She said this as if global wars and planetary disasters were minor inconveniences. The council members exchanged worried glances. Most civilizations developed space travel specifically to escape planetary disasters. The idea of thriving through multiple catastrophes was alien to them. "Perhaps we should begin formal first contact procedures," Zephyr 9 suggested, trying to regain control of the situation. "Of course," Dr. Chen agreed. "We brought gifts." She gestured to her companions, who opened several containers. "Music from our various cultures, samples of our art, and some basic information about our planet and people. Oh, and coffee. Everyone should try coffee." As the containers were examined by security, Dr. Chen continued talking. "We're really excited to join the galactic community. We have so much to offer. Our scientists are eager to share research. Our artists want to learn about alien cultures, and our traders are interested in establishing commercial relationships." The security scans showed that the gifts were exactly what they appeared to be: harmless cultural artifacts. But the casual confidence with which these humans approached first contact was unsettling. Most species were overwhelmed by their first encounter with galactic civilization. These humans acted as if they had been expecting this moment their entire lives. "We have established procedures for integrating new species," Zephyr 9 explained. "There will be tests to assess your technological capabilities, psychological profiles, and cultural compatibility." "Tests sound great," Dr. Chen said with enthusiasm. "We love tests. When do we start?" As the formal first contact protocols began, none of the council members noticed the small detail that would later prove significant. The humans had not asked for protection, resources, or guidance. They had not expressed fear of the unknown or concern about their place in galactic society. They had simply announced their arrival and asked to join the conversation. For the first time in 1,000 years, the Galactic Council was about to encounter a species that saw them as equals rather than saviors. The next morning brought the standard biological and technological assessments. Dr. Chen and her team submitted to medical scans, while council scientists examined their ship and equipment. What they discovered made everyone very uncomfortable. Dr. Vrex, the council's chief xenobiologist, stared at his scanner readings in disbelief. The insectoid scientist's compound eyes twitched as he ran the tests for the third time. "Ambassador Zephyr 9, he called out over the communication system. "I need to speak with you immediately." In the medical bay, Dr. Chen chatted cheerfully with the medical staff while machines examined her body. She seemed genuinely interested in their equipment and asked detailed questions about alien biology. Her casual curiosity made the doctors nervous. Most new species were either terrified of alien medical procedures or too proud to show interest. "Your bone density is remarkable," commented Dr. Vrex as he reviewed the scans. "Your skeleton could survive impacts that would shatter most species' bones." "Well, Earth has pretty strong gravity," Dr. Chen replied. "We evolved to handle it, plus human bones heal pretty quickly if they break." "How quickly?" Dr. Vrex asked. "A simple fracture? Maybe 6 to 8 weeks? Complex breaks take a few months, Doctor." Vrex's translator made a choking sound. Most species required a full year to heal major bone damage, if they could heal it at all. The cardiovascular scans were even more disturbing. Humans had 2 separate circulation systems and backup organs for nearly everything vital. Their hearts could continue beating even after major damage. Their livers could regenerate lost tissue. Their immune systems were so aggressive, they sometimes attacked their own bodies by mistake. "Your species has redundant organs," Dr. Vrex observed. "Sure," Dr. Chen said. 2 kidneys, 2 lungs, backup circulation systems. Evolution gave us spares for the important stuff." Why would evolution require such redundancy? Dr. Chen thought for a moment. Earth's kind of a dangerous place. Natural disasters, predators, diseases, injuries. Having backup systems helps you survive long enough to reproduce. The medical team exchanged glances. Most civilized species evolved on garden worlds with stable climates and few natural threats. The idea of needing multiple backup organs just to survive childhood was horrifying. Meanwhile, in the engineering bay, human technology was causing different problems. The ship's computer systems were primitive but incredibly robust. The engines were simple but efficient. Everything was built to work under extreme conditions. Chief Engineer Bolts and Sparks, a mechanical species that looked like walking robots, examined the human vessel with growing confusion. "This design makes no sense," he reported to his superiors. "The hull is thick enough to survive impacts that would destroy modern ships. The power systems have 7 different backup generators. The life support can run for months on emergency power." "Perhaps they are simply cautious builders," suggested his assistant. "No," Bolts and Sparks replied. "This ship is built for war. Every system has been designed to keep working under attack, but they claim to be peaceful explorers." The cultural assessment team was having the worst time of all. Dr. Chen had brought thousands of hours of human entertainment, news broadcasts, and historical records. The content was deeply disturbing. Humans created stories about alien invasions for fun. They made movies about galactic wars, robot uprisings, and planetary destruction. Their news programs casually discussed natural disasters that killed thousands of people. Their history books described conflicts that made the Vorthak military campaigns look like minor disagreements. "They have something called disaster movies," reported cultural analyst Soft Thoughts, a telepathic species that communicated through shared emotions. Humans apparently enjoy watching fictional depictions of their own extinction. "Perhaps these are cautionary tales," suggested Professor Keith Prime. "No," Soft Thoughts replied, his mental emanations flickering with confusion. "They watch them for pleasure. They call it entertainment." The psychological profiles were the most troubling of all. Humans scored off the charts in categories that shouldn't exist together. They were highly cooperative, but also intensely competitive. They showed strong, protective instincts, but also aggressive tendencies. They formed deep emotional bonds, but could function independently when necessary. Their psychological contradictions, Dr. Mind Probe, the chief psychologist, explained to the council leadership. Every trait that makes them peaceful also makes them dangerous. Every strength is also a weakness. They shouldn't be able to function as a society, yet they clearly do function, Zephyr 9 pointed out. They unified their planet and achieved space travel faster than any known species. That's what makes them terrifying, Dr. Mind Probe replied. The breaking point came during Dr. Chen's presentation about Earth. She stood before a smaller council committee, showing images of her home world on a holographic display. Earth is a beautiful planet, she began, showing pictures of blue oceans and green continents. We have diverse ecosystems and climate zones. The committee members relaxed slightly. This sounded normal. Of course, we do have some challenging weather, Dr. Chen continued. The display showed a massive hurricane swirling over an ocean. This is Hurricane Patricia. Winds reached 200 miles per hour, caused some flooding and property damage. The committee stared in horror. Winds over 50 miles per hour were considered catastrophic on most worlds. And here's Mount Vesuvius erupting, Dr. Chen said cheerfully. The display showed a mountain exploding, throwing molten rock miles into the air. Volcanic activity is pretty common on Earth. We have about 1,500 active volcanoes. Several committee members made distressed noises. Most civilized worlds had 0 active volcanoes. This is the 2004 Indian Ocean tsunami, Dr. Chen continued, showing waves, as tall as buildings destroying entire cities. Killed about 200,000 people. We've gotten much better at early warning systems since then. Professor Keth Prime's branches were trembling. You consider these natural disasters to be normal? Well, they're part of life on Earth, Dr. Chen replied. We've learned to adapt. Building codes, evacuation procedures, disaster relief systems. Humans are pretty good at bouncing back from catastrophes. How many of these disasters occur per year? Asked Dr. Mind Probe. Dr. Chen thought for a moment. Major earthquakes, maybe a dozen. Significant volcanic eruptions, 4 or 5. Serious hurricanes and typhoons, 20 or 30. Tornadoes, floods, droughts, wildfires. Hard to say exactly. We have monitoring systems that track everything. The committee sat in stunned silence. Any one of these events would be considered a civilization-ending catastrophe on most worlds. Humans experienced dozens of them every year and treated them as routine inconveniences. Perhaps this explains your rapid technological development, Professor Keth Prime suggested weakly. Constant threats would motivate innovation. Maybe, Dr. Chen agreed, though I think our biggest advantage was global communication. Once we connected everyone through the internet, we could share knowledge instantly, made scientific progress much faster. She showed them images of the internet, a global network connecting billions of human minds. The concept was staggering. Most species took millennia to develop planet-wide communication. Humans had built it in decades, then used it to accelerate every other aspect of their development. How do you prevent information warfare? Asked the security chief. Surely such open communication systems could be weaponized. Oh, they were, Dr. Chen said casually. We had problems with misinformation, cyber attacks, propaganda campaigns. But we figured out ways to deal with most of it. Education, fact-checking systems, digital literacy programs. You can't stop bad actors entirely, but you can minimize the damage. The casual admission that humans had weaponized their greatest achievement, then solved the problem and moved on, left the committee speechless. As the assessment continued, one fact became clear to everyone involved. Humans weren't just different from other galactic species. They were different in ways that challenged every assumption about how civilizations developed. They had thrived in conditions that would destroy most species. They had solved problems that most civilizations never faced. They had achieved in decades what usually took millennia. Most disturbing of all, they seemed to consider their rapid, chaotic, disaster-filled development to be perfectly normal. The assessment team faced a difficult question. Were humans remarkably advanced or remarkably dangerous? As Dr. Chen finished her presentation with cheerful enthusiasm, the committee realized they might be the same thing. The Galactic Council decided to test humanity through their standard diplomatic challenges. These tests had been refined over millions of years to assess a new species' problem-solving abilities, moral reasoning, and compatibility with galactic civilization. Most species took days or weeks to complete them. Ambassador Zephyr 9 led Dr. Chen and her team to the testing chamber, a vast room filled with holographic displays and simulation equipment. A panel of judges from different species watched from an observation deck. The first test involves resource allocation, Zephyr 9 explained. Imagine a solar system with 3 planets. Each is inhabited by a different species with conflicting needs. You must distribute limited resources fairly while preventing conflict. The holographic display showed a complex star system. Planet Aquarius needed water. Planet Thermus required heat sources. Planet Verdania wanted fertile soil. The available resources could meet everyone's needs, but only through careful planning and compromise. Most species approach this problem methodically, spending hours analyzing each planet's requirements and calculating optimal distribution formulas. The humans huddled together for 5 minutes, whispering among themselves. "We have a solution," Dr. Chen announced. The judges exchanged surprised glances. 5 minutes was impossibly fast. Planet Aquarius gets mining rights to the ice asteroids in the outer system, Dr. Chen began. Planet Thermus gets exclusive access to the solar collectors near the star. Planet Verdania gets the agricultural zones on the middle planet. But that leaves each planet dependent on the others, objected Judge Harmony, Seeker of the Pacifist. Coalition. Exactly, Dr. Chen smiled. Mutual dependence creates mutual benefit. Everyone needs what the others produce, so everyone has incentive to maintain good relations. Trade relationships prevent conflicts better than isolation. The solution was mathematically optimal and psychologically sound. The judges had expected lengthy negotiations and careful compromise. Instead, the humans had immediately grasped the underlying principle that interdependence creates stability. The second test was more complex. A space station housed 5 different species, each with incompatible environmental needs. Tensions were rising toward violence. How could peace be maintained? Again, the humans consulted briefly before answering. Rotate the station sections, suggested Dr. James Kim, one of Dr. Chen's team members. Create time-sharing zones where each species gets optimal conditions for part of each day. Install translation booths in common areas. Set up cultural exchange programs so everyone learns about each other. What if they refuse to participate? Asked Judge Stoneheart of the Geological Union. Make participation beneficial, replied Dr. Lisa Park, the third human. The species that cooperate get better time slots, more resources, priority in emergencies. Reward good behavior instead of just punishing bad behavior. This solution also impressed the judges. Most species either suggested separating the groups or imposing strict rules from outside authority. The humans had proposed a system that encouraged voluntary cooperation through incentives. The third test was designed to measure military thinking. A peaceful cargo ship was being attacked by pirates. How should the galactic authorities respond? This question usually revealed a species' fundamental approach to conflict. Peaceful species suggested negotiation or withdrawal. Aggressive species recommended overwhelming force. The humans surprised everyone. Send one fast ship to help the cargo vessel escape, Dr. Chen said. While that's happening, track the pirates back to their base. Don't attack immediately. Instead, offer them legitimate Employment. Employment? Judge Sharpblade of the Vorthak Empire sounded confused. Pirates are usually just people without better options, Dr. Kim explained. They have ships, they know space routes, and they're willing to take risks. Those are valuable skills. Offer them jobs as security escorts, exploration scouts, or emergency rescue teams. Pay them better than piracy pays, and most will switch sides. What about the ones who refuse? Then you know who the real criminals are, Dr. Park replied. Deal with them accordingly. But you'll have cut their numbers significantly, gained experienced personnel, and shown other potential pirates that there's a better path available. The judges were speechless. Most species saw criminals as inherently evil or inherently victims. The humans saw them as rational actors responding to circumstances. Change the circumstances, change the behavior. The fourth test was philosophical and deeply personal for many species. How should the galactic community respond to a species that refused all contact and fired on any ship that approached their territory? This question had real-world implications. Several species in galactic space maintained hostile isolation. The standard approach was to declare them off-limits and wait for them to develop or destroy themselves. The humans discussed this one longer, almost 15 minutes. Send them entertainment, Dr. Chen finally announced. Entertainment? Judge Wisdom Keeper of the Scholars Guild asked. Movies, music, art, stories, Dr. Park explained. Broadcast it toward their space on repeating frequencies. Don't demand response or contact. Just share your culture. Most species fear contact because they think aliens will be hostile or incomprehensible, Dr. Kim added. Show them that we're not so different, that we have families, hopes, dreams, problems, that we can be funny, sad, creative, foolish, make us seem human, relatable. What if this fails? Asked Judge Sharpblade. Then at least you tried something new, Dr. Chen replied. The current approach hasn't worked for thousands of years. Maybe it's time to try radical kindness instead of patient waiting. The final test was the most challenging. A species had developed technology that could destroy entire solar systems. They claimed it was for defensive purposes only, but their neighbors were terrified. How should the galactic community respond? This scenario had happened twice in galactic history. Both times, the Council had demanded the weapons be destroyed. Both times, the species had refused and been forcibly disarmed by coalition forces. The resulting wars had lasted decades. The humans surprised everyone by asking questions. Do they have enemies? Dr. Chen inquired. Not currently, Judge Zephyr 9 replied. Have they been attacked recently? No. Are they expanding aggressively or threatening anyone? No, they seem genuinely peaceful except for these weapons. Dr. Chen nodded. Then offer them a mutual defense treaty. The judges stared. Excuse me? If they built planet-killer weapons for defense, give them better defense, Dr. Kim explained. Guarantee that the galactic community will protect them from any threat. Make the weapons unnecessary. But what if they use the weapons anyway? Asked Judge Harmony Seeker. Then you know they were lying about defensive purposes, Dr. Park replied. But if they really were scared, you've solved the real problem. Fear makes people do stupid things. Remove the fear, remove the stupidity. What if we can't honor the defense guarantee? Asked Judge Sharpblade. Dr. Chen shrugged. Then you're not really offering security, just pretty words. If you want them to trust you, you have to be trustworthy. If you want them to give up their weapons, you have to give them something better. The testing committee retired to deliberate. The humans had completed all 5 scenarios in under 3 hours. Their solutions were creative, psychologically sophisticated, and strategically sound. But they were also completely unlike anything any other species had ever proposed. Professor Keth Prime spoke for the committee. These humans think about problems differently than any species we have encountered. They see cooperation and competition as compatible rather than opposing forces. They treat criminals as rational actors rather than moral failures. They respond to fear with empathy rather than judgment. "Is this good or bad?" asked Judge Harmony Seeker. "I do not know," Professor Keth Prime admitted. "Their solutions are effective, but they require a level of psychological understanding that most species do not possess. They also require a willingness to take risks that most civilized beings find uncomfortable." Judge Sharpblade was more direct. "They think like warriors who have learned to prefer peace. That combination should not be possible." In the testing chamber, Dr. Chen and her team waited patiently for the results. They seemed relaxed, even cheerful, as if complex diplomatic scenarios were just interesting puzzles to solve. "How do you think we did?" Dr. Park asked. "Pretty well, I think," Dr. Chen replied, "though I got the feeling they were testing more than just our problem-solving skills." "What do you mean?" asked Dr. Kim. Dr. Chen looked thoughtful. Every question was about conflict resolution, but they all assumed that different species couldn't understand each other, like they've given up on the idea that strangers can become friends. She was right, though she didn't know it. The Galactic Council had been formed by species that survived through avoidance and submission. They had forgotten that some problems could be solved through understanding rather than simply endured. The humans had just reminded them that there might be other ways to live. After the formal tests concluded, Dr. Chen made a request that sent shockwaves through the council leadership. She asked to see the historical archives, particularly records of civilizations that had failed to achieve galactic status. "We're fascinated by evolutionary dead ends," she explained to Professor Keth Prime in the Archive Center. "On Earth, we study extinct species to understand why they disappeared. It helps us avoid making the same mistakes." Professor Keth Prime's ancient wooden face showed deep concern. The request was unprecedented. New species usually asked about trade opportunities, territorial boundaries, or technological exchanges. They never asked about failures. "Why do you find extinct civilizations interesting?" he asked carefully. Dr. Chen's eyes lit up with genuine curiosity. "Well, space is huge, right? But when we started exploring, we found lots of dead worlds. Planets with ruins, abandoned cities, broken technology. Someone built all that, then vanished. We want to understand what happened." The professor's branches trembled. Humans had discovered the silent worlds on their own. Most species needed centuries of galactic guidance before they were ready to learn about the galaxy's greatest mystery. "What did you find on these worlds?" Professor Keth Prime asked, though he dreaded the answer. "Partial records, mostly," Dr. Chen replied. "Whatever destroyed these civilizations was thorough, but we found enough to know it wasn't natural disasters or resource depletion. Something or someone systematically eliminated advanced species." Dr. Chen pulled out a small device and projected holographic images. Ruined cities on dozens of worlds, shattered space stations, broken monuments. The evidence was undeniable. Advanced civilizations had been deliberately destroyed. "We've detected similar energy signatures from attacks that happened at different times," Dr. Chen continued. "Whatever did this operated across thousands of years and targeted specifically advanced, spacefaring species. Primitive worlds were left alone." Professor Keth Prime felt ancient fear creeping through his consciousness. The humans had discovered the truth about the Devourers without any guidance. They had found the pattern that the Galactic Council had spent millennia trying to hide from new members. "Have you shared this information with other humans?" he asked. "Of course," Dr. Chen replied. "Our scientists have been studying the pattern for decades. We call it the Fermi Paradox solution. The answer to why space seems so empty despite being old enough for many civilizations." The professor's translator made a choking sound. Humans had not only discovered the truth, they had named it and incorporated it into their scientific understanding of the universe. Meanwhile, in a secure military facility. Vorthak strategic analysts were running disturbing simulations. General Ironclaw, the Empire's chief military planner, studied the results with growing alarm. The humans had provided detailed specifications of their technology for trade evaluation purposes. The data was supposedly proof of their peaceful intentions. Instead, it revealed a military doctrine unlike anything in galactic civilization. Human ships were built for war, not conquest or expansion, but survival warfare. Every vessel could operate independently for months. Every system had multiple backups. Every component was designed to keep functioning under extreme damage. "They do not build ships," Ironclaw reported to his superiors. "They build mobile fortresses. Even their civilian vessels carry military-grade shields and weapons." The weapons were the most disturbing aspect. Humans had developed something called kinetic bombardment, using simple, mass accelerators to drop chunks of metal at relativistic speeds. The weapons were primitive but devastatingly effective. A cargo ship could carry enough kinetic penetrators to sterilize a planet. "Why would a peaceful species develop such weapons?" asked Colonel Steelfang. "They claim it is asteroid defense. Technology," Ironclaw replied. "They use the same systems to deflect dangerous space rocks from their planet. But the applications for warfare are obvious." The tactical analysis was even more troubling. Human military doctrine emphasized mobility, redundancy, and psychological warfare. They had developed strategies for fighting enemies with superior technology by using unpredictable tactics and acceptable losses. "They have a concept called mutually assured destruction," Ironclaw explained. "If attacked, they guarantee to inflict unacceptable damage on the attacker, even at the cost of their own destruction." "That is madness," Colonel Steelfang objected. "That is deterrence," Ironclaw corrected. "And it is effective. Our simulations show that humans could potentially hold their own against superior forces through sheer tactical unpredictability." The final piece of disturbing intelligence came from the cultural analysis team. Humans spent recreational time imagining scenarios of interstellar warfare. They created elaborate entertainment depicting alien invasions, galactic conflicts, and military campaigns across space. "They call it science fiction," reported cultural analyst Soft Thoughts. Humans routinely imagine first contact scenarios, interstellar wars, and galactic civilizations. They have already considered most possible outcomes of joining galactic society. "Do they expect conflict?" asked Ambassador Zephyr 9. "They expect everything," Soft Thoughts replied. "Their stories include peaceful cooperation, hostile invasion, technological exchange, cultural contamination, and dozens of other possibilities. They appear to prepare for every contingency." The breakthrough came when Dr. Chen made an offhand comment during a casual conversation with Professor Keth Prime. They were discussing human exploration priorities when she mentioned something that stopped him cold. "Our first goal after achieving FTL was mapping local space for defensive purposes," she said casually. "We needed to know if there were immediate threats in our neighborhood." "Defensive purposes?" Professor Keth Prime asked. "Sure," Dr. Chen replied. "We found evidence of systematic destruction of advanced civilizations. Obviously, our first priority was making sure we could defend ourselves if whatever did it came back." Professor Keth Prime's branches went rigid. "You built defenses?" Dr. Chen nodded cheerfully. "The Sol Defense Grid, automated weapon platforms around our star, early warning sensors throughout our local space group, and contingency plans for evacuation or resistance. Standard precautions for a species that knows something nasty is out there." She said this as if building a fortress around an entire star system was perfectly normal, as if preparing for war against unknown enemies was just common sense. "What kind of contingency plans?" Professor Keth Prime asked weakly. "Well, evacuation plans for non-essential personnel, distributed manufacturing for essential supplies, and resistance protocols for different attack scenarios," Dr. Chen explained. "We also developed technologies specifically for asymmetric warfare against superior enemies." Professor Keth Prime realized with growing horror that humans had done exactly what the Galactic Council had never dared to do. They had looked at the evidence of systematic destruction and chosen to prepare for battle rather than hope the threat would never return. "Have you considered that defensive preparations might draw unwanted attention?" he asked. Dr. Chen looked, surprised. "Of course, but hiding doesn't work forever, does it? If something is systematically hunting advanced civilizations, it will find you eventually. Better to be ready when it does." The casual logic was unassailable and terrifying. Humans had reached the same conclusion about the galactic threat that Council strategists had debated for millennia. The difference was that humans had acted on their conclusion. That evening, Professor Keth Prime called an emergency meeting of the Council leadership. The discussion that followed would change everything the Galactic Council thought they knew about survival, civilization, and the price of peace. "The humans know about the Devourers," he announced without preamble. "They discovered the pattern independently and have been preparing for their return." The chamber fell into shocked silence. After 50,000 years of carefully hidden secrets, a species had joined the galactic community already knowing the truth about their greatest fear. Worse yet, they had come prepared to fight. The emergency session of the Galactic Council leadership took place in the deepest, most secure chamber of Nexus Prime. Only 12 beings knew the full truth about the galaxy's greatest secret. Now they faced a crisis 50,000 years in the making. Chief Archivist Keth Prime stood before the emergency assembly, his ancient wooden form trembling with the weight of what he was about to reveal. Ambassador Zephyr 9's crystal body had dimmed to almost darkness. General Ironclaw's scales were pure black, the Vorthak color of absolute dread. "The time for secrecy has ended," Keth Prime announced. "The humans have forced our hand." For the first time in galactic history, the complete archives were opened. Holographic displays filled the chamber with images and data that had been classified at the highest levels for millennia. The truth was worse than most civilizations could handle. 50,000 years ago, the galaxy had been very different. Hundreds of aggressive, militaristic species competed for resources and territory. Wars were common. Expansion was constant. Advanced technology was used for conquest rather than cooperation. Then the Devourers arrived. Nobody knew where they came from. They appeared at the edges of known space, systematically hunting down every species that showed military capability. They didn't conquer worlds. They sterilized them. They didn't demand surrender. They simply eliminated entire civilizations. The war lasted 3,000 years. Every major military power fell. Entire species were extinct. Billions of worlds were left as empty ruins. Only the weak survived. Species that hid were ignored. Species that fled were allowed to escape. Species that submitted were spared. The Devourers seemed uninterested in any civilization that posed no military threat. When the killing finally stopped, the survivors faced a choice. They could rebuild their military power and risk the Devourers returning, or they could remain weak and safe. They chose safety. The Galactic Council was not a diplomatic organization. It was a survivors' support group. Every species in the galaxy was descended from those who had survived by being harmless. They had spent 50,000 years perfecting the art of weakness. "The pattern is clear," Professor Keth Prime explained as the historical data scrolled past. "The Devourers return every 50,000 years. They eliminate any species that has developed significant military capability during their absence. Then they disappear again. How do you know they will return?" asked Counselor Peacemaker of the Harmony Coalition. General Ironclaw's voice was grim. "Because they always have. This is the 4th cycle recorded in the archives. Each time civilizations grow strong during the peaceful period. Each time the Devourers return to cull the dangerous species. The pattern suggests they will return soon, added Data Keeper Prime, the Council's chief intelligence analyst. We are approaching the end of the current cycle. The assembled leaders sat in stunned silence as the implications sank in. Everything they had believed about galactic civilization was a lie. They were not peaceful by choice. They were peaceful by necessity. They had not evolved beyond warfare. They had been trained to avoid it through systematic extermination. Where are the humans in this pattern? Asked Ambassador Zephyr 9. Professor Keth Prime activated another display. The humans represent something that should not exist, a species that developed military capability without being eliminated. They achieved advanced technology and aggressive doctrine during a period when the Devourers were absent. They are, essentially, what galactic civilization looked like before the first culling. Are they dangerous to us? Asked Counselor Peacemaker. Unknown, General Ironclaw replied. Their military capabilities are significant, but their diplomatic behavior has been peaceful. They seem more interested in cooperation than conquest. That may not matter, Professor Keth Prime said quietly. If the Devourers return and find humans in our space, they may consider all of us contaminated. They may decide to eliminate every species that had contact with the humans. The chamber fell silent again as this new horror settled in. The humans had not just brought themselves to the attention of the galaxy's greatest threat. They had potentially doomed everyone else by association. What do the humans want? Asked Data Keeper Prime. Professor Keth Prime activated one final display. It showed the full transcript of Dr. Chen's conversations over the past week. Buried in casual comments and friendly questions was a pattern that only became clear when viewed together. The humans had been evaluating the Galactic Council's military capabilities. They had asked about defense systems, emergency protocols, and crisis response procedures. They had inquired about the location of civilian populations and strategic resources. They had mapped the political structure and identified key decision-makers. They are conducting a strategic assessment, General Ironclaw realized. They are determining whether we can be defended. The final piece of the puzzle came from Dr. Chen's closing presentation to the full council. She had requested permission to address all 847 species representatives simultaneously. The request had seemed like a formal diplomatic courtesy. Dr. Chen stood before the assembled galactic civilization with the same cheerful confidence she had shown from the beginning. But now the council leadership understood what they were really seeing, a species that had never learned to be afraid speaking to a galaxy that had forgotten how to be brave. Honored representatives, she began, humanity comes before you with a proposal. The chamber was silent except for the subtle sounds of hundreds of different life forms breathing, pulsing, or humming in their various ways. We know about the Devourers, she said simply. Gasps and cries of alarm echoed through the chamber. Several representatives fainted. Others began praying in their native languages. The secret that had shaped galactic civilization for 50,000 years was spoken. Aloud, we know they will return, Dr. Chen continued calmly. We know what they did to previous civilizations. We know why this galaxy chose peace over strength. She paused, looking around the chamber with sympathy and understanding. We also know that hiding did not save the species that tried it. Running did not save those who fled. Submission did not save those who surrendered. The Devourers eliminated them all eventually. The chamber was now completely silent. Every being present was frozen in terror at hearing their deepest fears spoken so directly. But there is another option, Dr. Chen said, her voice carrying clearly through the vast space. You can fight. The word fight sent ripples of panic through the assembly. Most species had not even heard the concept discussed seriously in thousands of years. Humanity offers our friendship, our technology, and our protection to any species willing to stand with us, Dr. Chen announced. We propose to build a defensive alliance capable of facing the Devourers when they return. She activated a holographic display showing human military technology, defensive strategies, and tactical doctrines. "We cannot promise victory," she said, honestly. "We cannot promise safety. But we can promise that if the Devourers return, they will face resistance instead of submission. They will encounter strength instead of weakness. For the first time in their hunting history, they will face prey that fights back." The chamber remained silent for long minutes after she finished speaking. Representatives stared at each other, at the humans, at the leadership panel. The offer hung in the air like a dangerous chemical that might explode if disturbed. Finally, Ambassador Zephyr 9 found her voice. "And if we refuse?" Dr. Chen's expression remained kind, but became deadly serious. "Then humanity will defend itself alone, as we planned from the beginning. We came here hoping to save everyone. But we will not sacrifice our species for others who choose to remain victims." The silence that followed was absolute. For the first time in 50,000 years, the Galactic Council faced a choice between safety and survival, between the certainty of slow extinction and the uncertainty of resistance. The humans waited patiently for an answer, unaware that their arrival had just rewritten the fundamental assumptions underlying galactic civilization. In offering to be the galaxy's sword and shield, they had forced every species to confront the question they had avoided for millennia. Was it better to live on your knees or die on your feet? The choice would define the future of every intelligent species in the galaxy. The age of peaceful submission was over. The age of defiant hope had begun.